A New York landlord was falsely accused and arrested due to a lying tenant who was protected by the Eviction Moratorium. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an absolutely horrible story for you today, and it's all about the nightmare situation that a landlord went through up in New York. But before I get to that story, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you want to see on this channel, okay? I'm going to work to keep bringing you great articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. All right, so this article, it comes to us from therealdeal.com, and it says, Flooded, Arrested, Assaulted, a Landlord's Horror Story. And I've read this article already. It sounds pretty horrible. Okay, so this is the kind of nightmare tenant situation that a lot of us really fear. And I feel bad for this landlord, but it really tells me that I don't want to be dealing with criminal or ex-cons as tenants in my properties, especially not if I actually live in that property with them. So let's get into this article and see what it says. As New York skidded toward lockdown, the landlord of a 3-unit building in Queens was being thrown in handcuffs. It was March 17, 2020, and Robert Compass remembers leaving work early to handle a distress call from the first floor tenant at 14608 181st Street, the home he owns and occupies in Springfield Gardens. The tenant's ceiling was pooling with water because the second floor renters had flooded their apartment again. Wow, I mean, talk about a bad situation there. So we have tenants that are flooding their unit multiple times, okay, and this sounds like it's right at the beginning of the pandemic, March 17th, 2020. So this is an awful situation to be put in, especially right as the pandemic was beginning and right as the eviction moratoriums were about to start. So it sounds like, already it sounds like a bad situation. He's like, "You got to get over here now because the ceiling is going to cave in," Compass said. The landlord could hear water gushing as he hurried downstairs to his basement unit and cut off the lines. When he emerged, the second floor tenants told him they'd called the cops on him for threatening them with a gun. Compass said he didn't own a gun, and anyway, he'd been at work. The irony was that Compass's accusers, Sylvia Cruz and Jason Hermitas, a formerly incarcerated couple housed by the nonprofit Fortune Society, had themselves been in a near constant torment to their neighbors, landlord and caseworker, from the moment they moved in. So yeah, it looks like they're falsely accusing the guy of pulling a gun on him and getting him arrested for some BS after he basically had to rush in there and solve this horrible water problem where the roof is caving in. I mean, what kind of ridiculous situation is this? I mean, this sounds like a nightmare tenant from the get-go. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this, but looks like they were housed by a nonprofit in his property. So yeah, I know that some landlords will rent their unit out to a nonprofit, and the nonprofit can just throw anybody up in there, and most of the time it'll be someone who is like these people who was formerly incarcerated or someone who's facing homelessness or whatever. But if you can't do the screening on the tenant who's going to be living in your property, then you don't know what you're going to get, and it's going to be a complete mixed bag. And that's definitely not something I'd be doing if I was actually living in the unit. I don't care how much they're paying, okay? I don't care if the paycheck is steady. You could get truly screwed over, and that's exactly what this sounds like that happened to this landlord. They let the sinks run over and clog the toilet. They stomped on their floor at 2 a.m., waking the downstairs neighbor's newborn, whom they later threatened to kill. They called Child Protective Services on Compass for abuse of a 9-year-old son the agency found didn't exist. They made their caseworker cry. Wow, these are bad tenants. I mean, oh, wow. And they have pictures of the flooded apartment unit, and I'll throw them up on screen up over here, I guess, so that you can have a glimpse of the destruction that they caused to this guy's house. I mean, wow. I mean, they called Child Protective Services on him, and he ain't even got a 9-year-old kid. I mean, what kind of ridiculousness is this? But I mean, we're talking about people who probably aren't all there. Who knows? They might be on drugs. They were previously incarcerated. I mean, this isn't what I would definitely, this is what happens when you're not able to screen your tenants properly. Okay, so for all those people out there right now who live in jurisdictions where they are taking the rights away from the landlord to do background checks and look at criminal history, this is the result. In the weeks that followed the arrest, Compass was charged with harassment with a deadly weapon, banned from his home via an order of protection, and physically assaulted, by the second floor renters. So he was banned from his own house, because they said he actually lived in the same property. So he can't even go home, because he has a protection order against him, a fake, a false protection order by these tenants. I mean, is there no recourse for false protection orders like this? I mean, what is a person supposed to do? I mean, I feel awful for this guy, but, once again, this comes down to he shouldn't have, been willing to put anybody up in his property without him being able to personally do the screening. Compass repeatedly told the Fortune Society that he wanted the couple out of his house. Fortune, which signed a lease as Compass's tenant and then rented to the couple through an occupancy agreement, had failed to act. Things were boiling over. In the weeks that followed the arrest, I already read that. Nearly a year and a half later, he says he lost everything. A lackluster response by the Fortune Society has left the couple in occupancy, Compass's property destroyed, and the landlord with a repair bill he believes the nonprofit will try to punt. Now Compass fears that a line from one of Cruz's tirades approximates how the saga will end. "We're going to tear your house apart when we are finished with it," she allegedly said. Wow. Okay. These are the kind of tenants that should not be protected by the eviction moratorium. And at the same time, this nonprofit, they should be held liable for putting these horrible people into this guy's property. Okay. And I don't even know what to say. I mean, nightmare situation for a landlord altogether right here. So let's skip around here and see if there was any resolution. So it says, the landlord has since filed his own eviction suit, naming the Fortune Society, Cruz, and Hermitas as defendants. His lawyer told him that given the current housing court backlog, it could be 14 months before his case is heard. As for the tens of thousands of dollars Compass expects he's owed in damages, the landlord doubts he can find a lawyer to accept the case. He said multiple attorneys have declined to take on Fortune. The destruction of the last year and a half has left its mark. Compass is still banned from his home. He has picked up criminal charges and a smoking habit to cope with his stress. A few months ago, he lost most of what he owns. In the spring of this year, Compass sent a plumber over to remedy an HP action. The couple had filed against him for a broken faucet and no running water. When the plumber arrived, he called Compass. A blockage had flooded his apartment. All of Compass's belongings, his bed, his television, his clothing, were submerged. The culprit, a rag the couple had flushed down the toilet. "Everything that I own is in raw sewage," Compass said. "I have nothing anymore. Nothing." Okay, eviction moratorium has got to end. I don't want to see other landlords ending up in this sort of situation, okay? You end up with horrible tenants up in your property that you can't evict. You have no recourse whatsoever. And, the only thing that appears is that at least he was still getting paid from the nonprofit. I didn't see anything in the article saying that he wasn't getting paid. The big issue was that he couldn't remove these tenants who were basically destroying his property. So in his situation, it doesn't even have to do with anything other than public safety, okay? And these people were able to lie and get a protection order against him, get him banned from his own house. I mean, these people have got to go, okay? I don't believe that the eviction moratorium should protect people like this, and it's awful that he's been treated this way, and I don't want to see other landlords end up in the same situation.